As the wind howled outside, rattling the loose shutters against the glass panes, Daniel tossed restlessly in his sleep. His dreams were filled with twisting mazes and beckoning whispers. Every time he thought he was close to waking, he'd only sink deeper into slumber. A cold sweat clung to him, his heart pounding against his ribs like a frantic bird. Then, from the depths of the darkness, a voice seemed to slither out, slithering closer. "Never wake up." Daniel jolted upright in bed, gasping for breath. His younger sister Sophia stirred beside him, murmuring, "Nightmare." She looked so peaceful, her breathing even and slow. He envied her ability to slip back into sleep so easily, unable to do the same himself. He glanced at the clock on his nightstand. 3:33 a.m., always the same time. The memory of last night's events flooded back. They'd been playing video games when their power suddenly went out, plunging them into darkness. Daniel had gone downstairs to check the breaker box while Sophia stayed behind, messing around with some old board games their parents had left in the attic. When he returned upstairs, she wasn't there. Her bedroom door was wide open, and a faint glow flickered through the gaps in the old wooden shutters. Curiosity piqued. They crept closer. Peeking through the window, they saw an antique four-poster bed draped in yards of golden cloth. It was the only source of light in the room. Below it, a single oil lamp illuminated two figures, their faces obscured by shadows. They were playing cards, but it wasn't the sight of the game that held them captive. It was the players, or rather the lack of them. There wasn't supposed to be anyone in there, at least not anyone living. Daniel nudged the door open with his shoulder and stepped inside. "See? Just an ordinary bed," he said, laughing. But his bravado faltered when a cold draft swept over him, extinguishing the flame of the oil lamp. The sudden darkness was thick and heavy, pressing down on them like a physical weight. Daniel fumbled for the door, panic rising in his throat. What if this place was haunted? He could feel Sophia's eyes boring into his back, and he hated the sound of her uneven breathing. Was she scared? He forced himself to stop and think. He pulled out his phone and turned on its flashlight. The beam did little to pierce the suffocating gloom. "Don't stay here," a voice rasped behind him. Daniel whirled around, his heart hammering against his ribs. It was the old woman. She shuffled closer, her face a mask of wrinkles and shadows. Her eyes, though, burned with an unnatural light. "You should leave while you still can," she croaked. Her words hung in the air like funeral bells, echoing their own mortality. Fear coiled in Daniel's stomach, squeezing tight. Why was she warning them? And why did her gaze seem to bore right through him, stripping away all pretense and facade? Before he could ask any questions, the old woman shuffled past him, disappearing into the darkness. He wanted to follow, to seek answers, but something held him back. Instead, he turned and fled, bursting through the front door and stumbling into the night. Behind him, the house groaned, settling back into its eternal slumber. Once outside, he could hear the pounding of his own heart in his ears. His breaths came in ragged gasps and his legs trembled beneath him. What was that place? And why did he have the feeling that the old woman's warning was not just for him? He found Sophia waiting for him by their car, her face pale and etched with worry. Relief washed over him, anchoring him to the present. He rushed to her, his earlier fear momentarily forgotten. Reuniting with his sister brought back a flood of memories. Growing up without parents, they'd leaned on each other, sharing secrets and fears. When their parents died in a car accident when they were young, they'd been sent to live with their aunt, a distant relative they barely knew. It hadn't been a happy childhood, but they had each other. That realization warmed him, chasing away the lingering chill of the old house. Walking back, they didn't speak much, both lost in their own thoughts. But when they reached home, they couldn't escape the nagging feeling that something was amiss. The encounter with the old woman in the mansion lingered in their minds, refusing to be ignored. Daniel tried to shake off the unease, telling himself it was just an old woman in a creepy house. But as the days passed, he found himself growing more and more agitated. His dreams became a torment, filled with the suffocating darkness of the mansion and the chilling whisper, "Never wake up." Sophia, too, was troubled. She couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister lurked within those four walls. Each night she'd lie awake listening for the faintest sound, the creak of a floorboard or the rustle of curtains, imagining the darkness seeping in from the old house next door. Daniel watched her grow increasingly anxious, her usual bubbly spirit dimmed. Her once bright eyes were now shadowed with worry, her laughter less frequent. It broke his heart to see her like this, and he desperately wanted to help. One day, he decided he'd had enough. He would confront the darkness head-on and uncover its secrets once and for all. That afternoon, he told Sophia he was going to the mansion to find answers. She tried to stop him, her voice shaking with fear. "It's dangerous, Daniel. Please don't go. We can't win against it." He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away a stray tear. "I won't let anything happen to you," he promised, though the words offered little comfort in the face of the unknown. When he knocked on the old house's door, it felt like centuries before it creaked open. Inside, everything was shrouded in a thick layer of dust, illuminated only by a sliver of sunlight piercing through the grimy window. As he ventured deeper, the air grew colder, sending shivers down his spine. The silence was deafening, amplifying every creak and groan of the aging house. He explored cautiously, uncovering faded grandeur, a testament to a time long past. The mansion had once been a beacon of elegance, but now it was a crumbling shadow of its former self. In the master bedroom, he found a diary tucked under the loose floorboard. Its leather cover was worn with age, and Daniel felt a thrill shoot through him as he opened it. The brittle pages crackled, releasing the scent of aged paper and vanilla. The first entry he opened to read, "The whisper started again last night, growing louder, more insistent. I can feel its presence growing stronger, seeping into my dreams, pulling me down into a bottomless pit of endless sleep." The words shook him, confirming his worst fears. This place was a trap, feeding on the dreams of unsuspecting souls and trapping them forever. But who was writing the diary? And what was this entity that lurked within these four walls? Determined to find answers, Daniel continued his search. In the attic, amidst cobwebs and moth-eaten furniture, he found a hidden compartment containing several old photographs. One picture caught his eye. It showed a man and a woman standing in front of the mansion. Their faces were eerily similar to his and Sophia's, their features like pieces of a fragmented mirror reflecting his own. Could they be related? The answer seemed to lie in the attic's farthest corner. As he pushed aside a tattered blanket, he uncovered a full-length mirror. Its surface was clouded with age, and when he wiped it clean, he gasped. Standing before him was a spectral figure, the diary's writer. Her hollow eyes stared back, her expression one of perpetual slumber. In her hand, she held a single white feather, its tip glowing faintly. An icy chill gripped him, and he stumbled back, knocking over a dusty trunk. As the mirror's reflection shifted, showing the disheveled interior of the attic, his eyes fell on a familiar object, the oil lamp from the night before. Hope surged through him. If he could destroy the lamp, break its connection to the house, maybe he and Sophia would finally be free from the mansion's clutches. But as he reached for the lamp, the attic door slammed shut, plunging them into darkness. The mansion shuddered. Paintings on the walls rippled like water, then solidified into images of stern-faced men in powdered wigs. Gasps escaped Sophia's lips as the oil lamps flickered and sputtered, casting grotesque shadows that danced on the ceiling. She scrambled back, bumping into a heavy wooden desk. Her heart hammered against her ribs. What was happening? She whirled around to find Daniel slumped on the four-poster bed, his eyes squeezed shut, his face contorted in an expression of sheer terror. In his sleep, his body was shaking violently, as if he were battling some unseen force. Daniel, stubborn and fearless, lay down. The moment he closed his eyes, the mansion shifted. The walls shimmered with living portraits, the lamps flickered low, and Sophia watched in horror as Daniel's body remained still on the bed. But his dream self walked right past her toward another door at the far end of the room. "Daniel!" she cried, rushing forward, reaching for his arm. But he didn't seem to hear her. His eyes were still closed, his face still ashen, but his lips moved as if in a silent scream. With a jolt, Sophia realized what was happening. This wasn't just a nightmare. Daniel had fallen into a deep dream, a place from which he might never wake up. "Daniel, wake up," she pleaded, shaking him by the shoulders. But his breathing was slow and shallow. His eyelids fluttered, then snapped shut again. Desperation clawed at Sophia's throat. She had to get him back. But how? As if in answer to her silent plea, one of the oil lamps sputtered and died, plunging the room into near darkness. A single shaft of moonlight sliced through the open window, illuminating motes dancing in the sudden gloom. Then, just as suddenly, the moonlight vanished. Outside, the sky had become an impenetrable black, devoid of even a whisper of wind. A low voice echoed in the room, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Who dares disturb the slumbering soul?" Sophia spun around, her pulse hammering against her temples. But the room was empty, or so it seemed. Then, as her eyes adjusted to the dim surroundings, she saw them. Pale figures clad in white, their faces blank, their eyes hollow. They stood silently in the corners, watching her with an unnerving stillness. One of them began to move, gliding toward her with an eerie grace that sent shivers down her spine. Terror lent speed to her steps as she fled from the room, the ghostly figure in pursuit. Down long corridors she ran, each turn leading her deeper into the labyrinthine mansion. She could hear its whispers now, slithering through the cracks in the walls, echoing her own fear and amplifying it. Suddenly, the corridor opened into a vast, cavernous space. In the center stood a towering figure wreathed in darkness, its presence so heavy it seemed to crush the very air. And behind it, rows upon rows of the white-clad figures stood silently watching. Sophia gasped, stumbling to a stop. The tall figure turned, and for a moment, Sophia saw not a face, but a swirling vortex of shadows. Then the darkness coalesced, taking the form of a man. His eyes burned like twin embers in the gloom. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "You may call me the Keeper," the man said, his voice a resonant echo. "And this is the prison of dreams, where the boundaries between the waking world and the dream realm blur and merge into one." He raised a hand, silencing her gasp. "It is here that those who dare to dream too deeply become trapped forever." His gaze, sharp and penetrating, seemed to bore into her very soul. "And it is here that Daniel has come." Sophia's heart lurched. She had to reach him to pull him back from the brink. But how? The Keeper's eyes narrowed. "You wish to follow him?" he asked, his tone brooking no denial. "Very well, but heed my warning. Once you dream here, you never wake up." With a last warning glance, he stepped aside, revealing a shimmering portal of swirling mist. Taking a deep breath, Sophia stepped through, the mist swirling around her like a shroud.